from the moment I go to bed till I wake up. All day, this is all I can think about, baby. So I frustrated opponents' heads with this anger. Always, 'cause this is all I can think about.
Hey everybody, what's up? Today is the first actual daily idea. I know I had the intro daily idea, and that was sort of an actual idea, but it's not really. It's just explaining what I was doing. So today we're here started with an idea from book. It's backwards, so you can't read it, but book is Originals by Adam Grant. And I've been reading this the past week, taking extensive and thorough notes on it. And one idea I came across was particularly interesting to me, so I took it upon myself to go and develop the idea more on my own and get a real solid understanding of it, so I could now come here and share it with you. So, here we go. I'm just gonna come in here and grab a seat real quick. My really poorly lit office. Poorly lit in the sense that, oh, it's white, very white light. I don't know. That works. I like this angle. Yeah, we'll go with that. Okay. So, what Adam Grant talks about, I'm gonna back up a little bit and give you some context to the idea. What made this idea stand out to me was that I'd actually come across it before. And how I came across it before was when I was doing landscaping work for this company called Property Care Inc. over this past summer. And while I was doing that landscaping work, I was able to listen to podcasts or other music or whatever in my headphones. And I was so grateful for that, and that just kind of kept me sane, because this one particular day, I remember, I decided to listen to this Malcom Gladwell podcast, and it was called Hallelujah, and it was about his own experience with finding a song that was really original and unique and creative, but how an original version of that song kind of sucked, and then so he sort of went on a journey to try and figure out how the different versions of these songs, I think it was called Deportee, came about. And so as he did that, he came across Adam Grant's book, Originals, and in there he found the thinking types section, where Adam explains what Gladwell explained, and that I am now going to explain in my own way. So what he came across was that there are two primary thinking types, and these different thinking types affect how and when people have creative or original thoughts. And so the first thinking type is conceptual thinking. And so these are people like Einstein. They are people like let me get my notes really quick. I don't remember the names off the top of my head, because I remember the concept, not really the name. Okay, notes. Okay, so Albert Einstein, James Watson in medicine, Orson Welles in film, E.E. Cummings in poetry, and so on. And so in the book, Adam Grant calls these people young geniuses. And they're people who reach the peak of their creativity and originality very early on in their career. Early being fairly subjective, but for most careers and fields, that tends to be between 20 and 30. Maybe you push it in a field that requires a bit more time to develop a solid knowledge base on, that could be 32, 33. So that's typically when it happens. And so how these people think and what makes them such early geniuses is that their thinking is conceptual. And what that means is that when they see a problem, they see a problem, and they start to think about it in their mind before they sit to work on it, and start to work on solving it. And so typically when they go to solve this problem, they have fully fleshed out in their mind and conceptualized a solution. So when they start, they already have a particular specific endpoint in mind. And that's essentially how a creative thinker not a creator, a conceptual thinker thinks. And this is very fast, and it's very reliant on imagination and using sort of just picturing things in your mind, and sort of more intuitive internal sense of thinking that's not really connected to empirical observations of the outside world. And so what he most likens these types of thinkers to in terms of speed is sprinters. So they just are really quick to find a fully fleshed out conclusion and then set to work on it and then show that that's what it actually was. And also another important thing to note is that usually these thinkers make the most impactful contributions to their field or area of study or career or whatever it is relatively soon after discovering it. But after that, because of the way their particular thinking style works, they tend not to make any further big contributions in the future, because they go into what Adam Grant calls a tunnel vision of the imagination, because their thinking is reliant on imagining these solutions in their mind, and because our minds tend to work in very habitual, repetitive ways, and a whole bunch of other stuff, we are sort of limited by that, and that after we make our first big leaps, now we're sort of just like a normal person. If you're a conceptual thinker, if you make your first big leaps and discover it, you become sort of set in your ways. Okay, so that's conceptual thinking, the conceptual thinking style. The other type is the experimental thinking style. Now, what the experimental thinking style is it's a much... It's really essentially what the name suggests it is. So when an experimental thinker approaches a problem, they do not have a particular end in mind. So they find a problem, and then as they're working on the problem, they make incremental and gradual improvements. The analogy I used to sort of describe the difference between a conceptual thinker and a experimental thinker is that one takes the elevator to innovation, the other takes the low-sloping access ramp to innovation. I don't know, sort of quippy thing I came up with, but yeah. So an experimental creator, I keep saying creator, an experimental thinker, their mode of thinking is really more dependent on actual observations of the world, the actual world, and then testing of that. And that's how they build their base of knowledge, and it's how they make their innovations. It's just through experiments and testing and pushing the envelope a little bit further each time. So just keep doing that, testing, and then experimenting, testing, and experimenting. And over time, this gradually leads to a more acute and I'm not sure what the exact word would be for this. Just a more accurate and full understanding of how the world actually functions. And because of this, because of their method being based more on actual observations of the world and testing those observations, as opposed to fully fleshing out a solution in their mind, they can sustain this much longer, because testing and experimenting are much less cognitively demanding and also much more reliable methods. So that's essentially experimental thinking there. Quintessential thinking is essentially the hare, and then the experimental thinking is the turtle and the hare analogy. Tortoise and the hare. Why did I say turtle? Tortoise. Oh well. But yeah, so that's the idea I came across today. If you want to find out more about it, I have the podcast linked in the description below. If you want to get a more concise explanation of this without so many ums and ahs, I'm getting better at this as I go, but there will be a link to my article at the end of this, and there will also be a link to Amazon where you can check out the originals book and see if you would want to purchase that. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you thought I did if you thought I did enough uhs and ahs, or if you just enjoy this and you want to hear more daily ideas. That's pretty much it for today, so thank you for listening, thank you for watching. Hope you're all having a splendid day and have many more splendid days throughout the week, and continue to check out my daily ideas. Thanks so much. Have a good one.